Right. Now, to this comment of yours, the current CEO of Total, who also engages projects here in Yemen, recently during an interview, he mentioned that the main challenge to the oil industry today is investment. Now, if we come to this with the subsidies, with the cost to the Yemeni budget, with the lack of contribution to the Yemeni budget from the oil, from the energy sector, how can Yemen move from the current situation to improve delivery of something as basic as electricity, as you say, to villages up in the mountains, or cities like Hodeidah, Aden, in cities in Hadramaut? What would Yemen infrastructure, what would Yemen's energy industry need in order to increase its delivery capability?
Right. So in the previous discussion, we talked about generation. And we said that the amount of electricity needed to furnish the rest of the population and to cover for expected development, industrial, agriculture, trade and tourism, etc., is at least tenfold what we produce today. And that needs sources of energy that are strategic, like gas, if we have. The question is, do we have gas? We discussed that. For the immediate term, we don't.
Right.
For the medium, maybe not. For the long term, yeah, probably yes. Now, how the efficiency or the capability of the government to really reach every citizen, every village, every town, in every mountain and every valley and desert in this country. It needs capital, because this is simple. It's grid. The infrastructure is electrical grid, both high voltage and low voltage. And that grid, the studies that the electricity sector has needs money. You need around $1 billion to mount the high voltage grid all over the country. And you need another $2 billion to mount the low voltage grid that will reach every home. So basically around $3 billion will solve the issue of the coverage, electricity coverage to the population, to reach 90-some%. Now the question is, I argued once in front of the cabinet, and unfortunately the argument was received but thought to be expensive. The argument was the rate of growth of population. Exactly. That's the issue.
Right.
The population of this country doubles every 23 years. Now we have, let's say, half of the country with electricity. Today it's not half, 45%, and the other half without. Now you want to cover the half that doesn't have electricity. If you want to cover that planet for 20 years, the half will be doubled.
Right.
You cannot, and the one that is covered will be doubled as well. So if you plan in 20 years to cover the remaining half, you will end up exactly after 20 years in the same point you started.
Right.
So basically, this is scientific. The rate of connectivity, electricity connectivity to the people, must be much higher the rate of the population growth. That's two curves. If the two curves parallel, it doesn't work, because we are currently only covering half. So basically, the rate of connectivity must be doubles, at least double the rate of population growth.
Any prospects of being able to meet such?
I must submit to you, sometimes when you talk scientifically, even in important places, you are not understood. So I hope the readers and
Absolutely.
they understand.
Absolutely.
What I'm saying.
Is there any strategy in place?
No.
Are there any partners willing and able to fill in this gap in order to assist Yemen meet this goal?
Absolutely not. Even the international organizations such as UNDP, and I hope they're listening to me, and World Bank. Give you an example. These are two good organizations. They've been helping Yemen in many aspects. But when it comes to energy, they're treating Yemen like a mini country. Give you an example. We have a small wind project with the World Bank, which is a very important pilot project to explore the world, the issue of wind, because also we should thank the World Bank first of all for their wind atlas production. They produce wind atlas for us, and we thank them for that. So we have prospects for wind, very good one. There is a project. When I became in charge of the sector, I looked. There's a project between Yemen and the World Bank to establish a wind farm 15 megawatt size. And I asked the World Bank, what is that? For what? For Djibouti?
Right.
I mean, what is 15 megawatt? I mean, we've been doing 10s and 15s for long time. We have to think about more than hundreds. Hundreds is not good enough anymore.
Right.
We have to think about 1,000. And the World Bank told me, sir, nobody told us. We proposed 115, nobody objected because there's no strategy.
Right.
So now, because of my push, they agreed I said at least 100 megawatt as a pilot. Now it's 60 and it will be implemented as 60. Good.
Through the World Bank.
Through the World Bank. And Al-Makha. Another issue which I finalized as a minister was the rural electrification strategy. There is a strategy. It's an excellent one. It was put together by all stakeholders, both international and national. And the strategy has been adopted by the cabinet recently. Thanks to God. The problem is, when I became minister, the strategy quoted 20 years implementation time. And I argued with the World Bank, what is that? Rural means the 50% remaining, because the 45% that is connected are cities. Okay? And some surrounding rural areas. All right? So the 55% is all rural.
Right.
So the strategy was talking about those who are not connected.
In the countryside, in the mountains.
Right. Now, you want to connect these people in 20 years. I said, God, it's the same thing. After 20 years, the population will be doubled.
Right.
You have, by that time, you will end up with where you started.
Right. Right.
You know what the World Bank did? They bought the argument. They said, you're right. We're sorry. So they slashed the 20. I said, make it 5 years. They said, you're too ambitious. From after much discussion, now it's 10 years. And I say this, now the strategy quotes 10 years to implement.
Right.
This means we will go from about 50% to 70%.
Right. Now, does the strategy assume larger urban populations or increasing rural populations in the countrysides and the mountains? Does the strategy, what is this focus? Urban centers or the countryside?
Urban. I'm sorry, country centers. I apologize. It's concentrated only in the countryside. Okay. And it takes into account the rate of movement from the country to the urban sides. It's a very scientific strategy, well written, well conceived, because every stakeholder was a member of that steering committee, so to speak. So the strategy is excellent. And it cost 10 years, which I didn't like. Of course, 20 years is nothing.
Right.
20 years means nothing. 20 years, 10 years means you go from 50% to about 70% in 10 years, huh? Okay. Which is development. Okay. Not at the rate I want, but it's development. Right. 5 years, it would have solved the problem.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
In 5 years, you could jump to 90%.
Right.
But they said, you're too ambitious, there's no money, and I said, okay, fine. Now, it's concentrated in not only in rural areas, it's also empowers a new ideas such as cooperatives.
Okay.
So every region, let's say a number of villages, sub-region will have a cooperative, like the US.
Right.
This is with we are using the success of the American Rural Electrification Organization. They are also member of the strategy, UNDP, GDZ, all of them are members, and all the parliaments in Yemen, everybody is a member of this strategy. And it's an excellent one. I just hope that it will be implemented. And I think this strategy particularly has better chance of being implemented than any other thing in the sector.
Now, because of all this information that you've given us, I want to ask you the main question from this interview that drove this interview, and to thank you for allowing us time with you to address this topic. But that is the designing of a national strategy in order to meet the needs in the short term and the midterm for the population. You've mentioned this 10-year project for the countryside, but your paper focuses on advocating a national strategy that is able to service countryside as well as urban centers.
And industrial, agriculture, trade, and tourism development.
What does Yemen need in order to design this strategy? What is the strategy based on, and what would be the benefits of such a strategy?
Okay. First, Yemen needs to be able to develop energy sources that are affordable, if not cheap.
Affordable to the consumer or affordable to the government?
Both. Affordable to government such that it becomes affordable to consumer. Okay? Affordable and environmentally friendly and sustainable. See? That's three conditions. Sustainable means they last for a long time. So that you put a strategy, let's say, for the next 50 years, and then you make it dissected into two part 1, part A, 25 and 25, and part 1 becomes 5 years installment. Do something like that. This is based on what we call energy mix, the creative, suitable energy mix for the country, which is whatever you have of gas, forget oil. Oil will be mostly for transportation. Mm-hmm. And then maybe household use like cooking and heating, okay, maybe, with gas. If there is enough gas in the immediate medium term, that will be used, but there is no gas. Gas does exist in Yemen. I think it does exist, but in the long term. Let's say we will have gas available for electricity more than the 1 TCF we talked about in Safar in 15 years. Okay, or more. Now, in that 15, 20 years, what are you going to do? You have to have... Solar energy is not suitable for electricity. Solar energy is an excellent energy source for heating, household heating, or water heating. Okay? There is a new technology in solar energy. It's a concentrated solar energy. Mm-hmm. So it's not a solar cell. Right. It's like hemisphere mirror-like surfaces that they concentrate energy into a pipe, and the pipe have a substance that vaporizes, and you take the vapor and you generate electricity. But this technology is still far away from being affordable.
Is Yemen implementing any type of basic solar energy today?
Right.
We see
very small scale.
We see, for example, all these new projects here in Sana'a, for example, or on the larger roads in the north or to the south, with massive lighting. But yet, is Yemen implementing something as small as solar lighting in the ring road, or the new road to Amran or Hodeidah, or in the new parliament or the new foreign office?
Solar energy is still very expensive. No matter what anybody in this planet tell you, solar energy is still very expensive and it cannot be used for electricity except when the price is justified. For example, faraway places, I mean, it's very expensive to bring the grid there. It's okay to have solar energy, okay, for the time being. Wind is half as expensive as solar energy, almost. Okay. The price is about 10 cents, 11 cents kilowatt hour of wind. So wind is much cheaper than diesel. Is much, much cheaper than diesel. It's like a third of the price of diesel of kilowatt hours. Okay. Then wind is viable. So we have to develop wind. Okay. Geothermal, I said, it's much cheaper, about 5, 4, 5, 6 cents, but we don't expect much of it. But we'll use it anytime, anyway. But it's not strategic. Mass is not, for us, is not viable because of water, the lack of water and land. Mm-hmm. So the only thing we have is nuclear. The reason, people have to realize without nuclear energy we will not survive, because nuclear today is so viable, is so competitive, because the price of kilowatt hour can be as low as 5 cents. And it cannot exceed 6 or 7 cents. So it's cheaper than sun, it's cheaper than wind, cheaper than oil. It's not cheaper than gas. If you own gas, if you have your own gas, if you import gas, it's cheaper.
Okay.
Right? So For us, nuclear energy is not an option.